Danny Marsh had been alone in space for 3 years, and the silence was finally getting to him. He sat in the pilot seat of his cargo hauler, the dusty horizon, watching the stars drift past the viewport while he ate his dinner from a sealed container. And he thought about how nice it would be to have something alive on this ship besides himself. The request had been simple enough when he filed it with the Galactic Commerce Network 6 weeks ago. Just a small companion animal, something furry and friendly that could sit on his lap during the long hauls between colony worlds. Something that would make noise and move around and remind him that he was not the last living creature in the universe. The notification came through while he was docked at Relay Station Kappa 7. A cryopod delivery marked as containing one Terran-compatible companion creature, and Danny had practically run to the cargo bay to retrieve. I'd stood there now, looking at the pod that sat on his cargo bay floor, and something felt wrong. The pod was too big. Danny scratched his head and walked around it slowly, checking the label 3 times to make sure it was addressed to him. And it was, his name right there in standard galactic script. Danny Marsh, cargo hauler license number 7741 Echo. One companion creature as requested, but the pod was the size of a person. Maybe they sent me a really big dog, he thought, or maybe some kind of alien creature that was larger than expected. And either way, he had already paid for it and signed the delivery confirmation, so he might as well open it and see what he got. He pressed the release button and stepped back as the pod hissed and cold vapor poured out onto the floor. The lid slid open slowly, and Danny leaned forward to look inside, expecting fur and maybe some cute little eyes looking back at him. Instead, he found a woman, or something that looked like a woman. She was pale, incredibly pale, with skin that seemed almost luminescent in the dim cargo bay lights. And her hair was long and black and spread around her like a dark pool. And she wore elegant robes of deep purple that looked more expensive than everything Danny owned combined. Her eyes snapped open, and they were red, bright red like emergency lights. And her mouth opened to reveal fangs, actual fangs, sharp and white, and definitely not something that belonged on any pet Danny had ever seen. She screamed. Danny also screamed. Woman scrambled out of the pod and threw herself into the corner of the cargo bay, pressing her back against the wall and holding her hands up in front of her face. And she was shaking so badly that Danny could see her whole body trembling, even from where he stood. "Please," she gasped, her voice cracked and desperate. "Please, I will do whatever you want. Just do not hurt me. I beg you." Danny stood frozen in place, his heart pounding in his chest, his brain trying very hard to process what was happening and failing completely. He started, then stopped, then tried again. "You are not a pet." The woman stared at him with those glowing red eyes, and Danny could see tears forming in them, actual tears running down her pale cheeks. "I am Queen Valera of the Nogthari," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "and I know what I'm worth on the black market. So please, if you must sell me, at least let it be quick. Do not torture me first." Danny blinked several times and looked back at the cryopod, then at the delivery confirmation on his datapad, then at the terrified woman huddled in the corner of his ship. "There has been a mistake," he said slowly. "I ordered a pet, like a small furry animal, something to keep me company. I did not order a person." Valera did not move from her defensive position, but her expression shifted slightly from pure terror to confusion. You did not purchase me?" "No," Danny said firmly. "Absolutely not. I do not buy people. That is not something I do. I am just a cargo hauler. I move boxes from one place to another, and sometimes I eat noodles for dinner 3 nights in a row because I forgot to buy groceries. I am not some kind of slave trader." Valera's hands lowered slightly, but she still pressed herself against the wall as if trying to face through it. "Then the smugglers," she said. realization dawning in her eyes. They must have mislabeled my pod to avoid detection at the checkpoints. They were taking me to the Karth Dominion, to Warlord Draxus. He has been hunting my people for decades. Danny had heard of the Karth. Everyone in this sector had. They were not the kind of people you wanted to cross paths with. Military conquerors who believed that strength was the only law and that weakness deserved punishment. Okay, Danny said, holding up his hands to show he meant no harm. Okay, so you are a queen, and you were kidnapped by smugglers. And now you are on my ship by accident, and there is a warlord looking for you. Yes, Valera whispered, and you have fangs. Yes. My people are the Nocthari. We feed on bioenergy, but we do not kill. We only take what our host can spare. The stories about us are lies spread by the Karth to justify our genocide. Danny processed this information for a moment, then nodded slowly. Are you hungry? He asked. Valera stared at him as if he had just spoken in a language she did not understand. What? Hungry, Danny repeated. You were in that pod for who knows how long. And you look like you have not eaten in a while. Are you hungry? Do you need food or bioenergy? Or whatever it is you eat? I do not understand, Valera said, her voice shaking. Why are you being kind to me? You are a human. Your species comes from a death world. Your people are apex predators who conquered their planet through violence. Why would you help me? Danny shrugged and walked over to a storage locker, pulling out a blanket that he kept for cold nights when the heating system acted up. Because you are scared, he said simply. And you are alone, and you are on my ship. And my mother raised me to be polite to guests, even when they show up unexpectedly with fangs. He held out the blanket toward her, keeping his distance so she would not feel threatened. Valera looked at the blanket, then at Danny, then at the blanket again, and very slowly she reached out and took it from his hand, wrapping it around her shoulders with trembling fingers. Thank you, she said quietly, and the words sounded like she had not spoken them in a very long time. Danny smiled and gestured toward the door that led to the main living area of his ship. Come on, he said. The cargo bay is cold, and I have coffee. Well, I have something that the vending machine on Kappa 7 called coffee. It tastes like regret and engine grease, but it is warm. And warm is good. Valera rose slowly to her feet, still clutching the blanket around her, still watching Danny with those red eyes that seemed to hold centuries of fear and pain. Why are you not afraid of me? She asked. Danny considered the question as he led her through the ship. I grew up on Earth, he said. We have sharks there and crocodiles and spiders that can kill you with one bite. And my ex-girlfriend who once threw a toaster at my head because I forgot our anniversary. Compared to all that, you seem pretty harmless. For the first time since she had woken up, something other than fear flickered across Valera's face. It almost looked like hope. 3 days passed on the dusty horizon, and Valera began to understand that Danny Marsh was unlike any creature she had ever encountered. She watched him from the corner of the small living area as he went about his daily routine, checking the navigation systems in the morning, eating breakfast from containers that he heated in something he called a microwave, talking to himself while he repaired a broken panel in the engine room, singing badly to music that played from speakers mounted on the walls. He did not lock her in a room or chain her to anything or treat her like cargo waiting to be delivered. He gave her the guest cabin, which he admitted was really just a storage closet with a bed shoved into it. And he apologized for the mess and said he would have cleaned up if he had known he was having company on the second day. Valera finally gathered the courage to ask him about humans. Your people, she said quietly while Danny ate his lunch. The stories say you are monsters, that you conquered your world through blood and fire, that you eat the flesh of other creatures and take pleasure in violence. Danny looked up from his sandwich, which was indeed made of meat, and he shrugged. I mean, technically yes, he said. We do eat meat. And our history has a lot of wars in it. And we did kind of take over the planet, but that does not mean we are monsters. We also invented ice cream and dogs, and those little videos of cats falling off tables. We contain multitudes. Valera did not understand most of those words, but she understood the tone. Casual and honest and completely unafraid. You are not scared of me at all, she said. And it was not a question this time, just an observation that still confused her. Should I be? I am a Nocturi. My people feed on the life force of other beings. The Korath call us parasites, abominations. They say we drain our victims until nothing remains but empty husks. Danny put down his sandwich and looked at her with an expression she could not read. Do you? No, Valera said immediately, and her voice cracked with emotion. No, we do not. We never did. We only take what our host can spare, a small amount of bioenergy that regenerates within hours. It feels like nothing more than a slight tiredness, like missing a few minutes of sleep. We lived in harmony with other species for thousands of years before the Korath came. Then why did they hunt you? Valera closed her eyes, and the memories came flooding back like poison. Because our blood has properties that other species find valuable, she said. It can heal wounds, extend lifespans, cure diseases that nothing else can cure. The Korath discovered this centuries ago, and they decided that we were more useful as livestock than as neighbors. They spread lies about us to justify their actions. They told the galaxy that we were monsters, so no one would object when they slaughtered us. Danny was quiet for a long moment. That is awful, he said finally. That is genuinely one of the worst things I have ever heard. And I once saw a man try to fit a live chicken through customs by hiding it in his pants. Valera opened her eyes and found Danny looking at her with something that might have been sympathy. When did you last feed? He asked. The question startled her so much that she did not answer right away. I do not know, she admitted. Weeks, perhaps. The smugglers kept me sedated in the pod. I am weak, weaker than I should be, but I would not ask you to let me feed. I would not put that burden on you. Danny stood up and walked over to where she sat, and he held out his arm toward her. Go ahead, he said. Valera stared at his arm, then at his face, searching for the trap, the trick, the hidden cruelty. You do not know what you are offering. You said it feels like missing a few minutes of sleep. Right. I have been running on 4 hours a night since I started this job. I think I can handle it. But why? Why would you volunteer? You do not know me. You owe me nothing. I am a stranger who appeared on your ship by accident. Danny smiled, and it was a warm smile. The kind of smile that Valera had not seen directed at her in longer than she could remember. Because you need help, he said. And I can help, and that is enough of a reason for me. My mother always said that kindness does not need a purpose. It just needs to exist. Valera reached out with trembling hands and took his arm, and she felt tears forming in her eyes again. Thank you, she whispered. And then she fed it. Took only seconds. A gentle flow of energy from his body to hers. Warm and bright, and full of something she had not expected. Danny Marsh was happy, genuinely happy. And his energy tasted like sunlight and laughter and terrible coffee and the freedom of open space. When she released him, he blinked a few times and yawned. Ha, he said. That was not bad at all. I feel like I just donated blood. A little dizzy, but fine, see. No empty husk. Valera wiped her eyes and tried to find words that could express what she was feeling. But before she could speak, an alarm blared through the ship. Danny rushed to the cockpit, and Valera followed. And they both looked at the screen that showed an incoming transmission. The face that appeared was reptilian, with scales of dark green and eyes like yellow flames. And Valera felt her blood turn to ice. Attention. Human vessel, the creature said, its voice like grinding stone. I am Warlord Draxus of the Korth Dominion. Our sensors indicate that you are in possession of stolen property belonging to me. You will surrender the Nocturi female immediately, or you will be destroyed. Danny looked at the screen, then at Valera, then back at the screen. Stolen property? He said, and there was something new in his voice. Something hard. She is a person, not property. Draxus laughed. A cold and ugly sound. She is a commodity. And she belongs to me. I paid the smugglers for her delivery. And I will have what is mine. Surrender her now, human. And I will let you live. Danny reached out and pressed a button. And the transmission cut off mid-sentence. Leaving silence in the cockpit, Valera grabbed his arm in panic. What are you doing? He will kill you. You have to give me up. One life is not worth dying for. Especially not the life of a stranger. Danny turned to face her. And she saw something in his eyes that she had not seen before. It was not fear. It was not anger. It was determination. Hey, Valera, he said calmly. You want to see how humans deal with bullies? Danny moved through his ship with a purpose that Valera had not seen from him before. Gone was the casual, easygoing man who sang badly and ate cold noodles for breakfast, replaced by someone focused and precise. Someone who seemed to know exactly what he was doing, even as he did things that should have been impossible. I need you to understand something, Danny said as he opened the panel in the wall and pulled out a device that looked distinctly military. This ship is not what it appears to be. Valera watched as he connected the device to the main power grid. And suddenly the dusty horizon hummed with energy she had not noticed before. What do you mean? I mean that I was not always a cargo hauler. I used to work for the Earth Defense Fleet. Nothing fancy, just a mechanic and engineer. But I learned a few things during my time there, and when I bought this ship, I made some modifications that the Galactic Safety Commission would probably not approve of. He pressed a sequence of buttons, and hidden panels slid open throughout the ship, revealing weapon mounts that had been concealed behind false walls. Those are military-grade pulse cannons, Valera said, recognizing the design with shock. They are. And the shielding on this ship is salvaged from a decommissioned destroyer that was being scrapped at the lunar shipyards. And the engine has been modified to push past safety limits because, well, human safety limits are already insane by galactic standards. So past that is really something special. Valera shook her head, struggling to comprehend. Why would you have all of this? You are a cargo hauler. You transport boxes. Danny smiled grimly as he continued his preparations. Space is dangerous. Pirates are common, and humans have a saying that I like very much. Better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. He moved to the communication station and opened a channel, not to Draxus, but to a frequency that Valera did not recognize. Attention all Terran vessels in Sector 7, Danny said into the communicator. This is Danny Marsh on the dusty horizon. I have a situation here. A Korth warlord is threatening to kill me because I am protecting someone who needs help. Anyone who can assist, please respond. Valera grabbed his arm. What are you doing? You cannot fight a Korth warship alone. They will destroy you. This is suicide. Who said anything about alone? The communication channel crackled, and then voices began to come through. Danny, this is Captain Lisa Crawford on the Midnight Runner. I am 3 hours out but heading your way. What kind of trouble did you find this time? Marsh, you idiot. It is Pete Holloway from the cargo vessel Iron Horse. I told you that your hero complex would get you killed someday. I am changing course now. ETA 2 hours. This is Nancy Kim on the Lucky Star. I heard Korth. Did someone say Korth? Because I really hate those guys. They impounded my ship last year over a paperwork error. Count me in. More voices followed. 7 ships in total, all changing course to come to Danny's aid. all dropping whatever they were doing because a fellow human asked for help. Valera listened in disbelief. "They are coming," she said. "They do not even know what the situation is. They do not know who I am or why the Korath want me. And they are coming anyway. That is how it works," Danny said simply. "We look out for each other. It is what humans do, but they could die. This is not their fight. Why would they risk their lives for a stranger?" Danny turned to face her, and his expression was serious but kind. "Because you are not a stranger anymore. You are on my ship, under my protection, and that makes you one of us. And humans do not abandon our own." Valera felt something break inside her. Some wall that she had built over centuries of running and hiding and being alone. And tears streamed down her face. "I do not deserve this," she whispered. "You do not even know me." "I know enough," Danny said. "I know that you are scared and alone and that someone is trying to hurt you. I know that you did not choose any of this, and I know that the right thing to do is to help you. Everything else is just details over the next several hours." The dusty horizon moved toward a rendezvous point while Danny coordinated with his fellow humans over the communication channel. Valera listened to their conversations and found herself amazed by what she heard. They joked with each other constantly, making fun of Danny for getting into trouble, sharing stories about past adventures, laughing about things that should have been terrifying. "Remember when we outran those pirates near the Andromeda Relay?" one of them said. "Danny flew through an asteroid field backward just to show off." "I was not showing off," Danny protested. "I was improvising. You almost hit a moon. I missed the moon. That is what matters." They were facing a Korath warship, one of the most feared military vessels in the sector. And they were laughing about it. Valera had seen many species respond to danger over her long lifetime. She had seen panic and despair and cold calculation, but she had never seen anything like this. "You are all insane," she said. Danny grinned at her. "Probably Earth has a saying about that too. The line between bravery and stupidity is mostly just a matter of whether you survive." The rendezvous came, and Valera watched through the viewport as the other human ships arrived. Not military vessels, just cargo haulers and transport ships like Danny's own. But each one had that same hidden potential. Modifications and upgrades that turned civilian craft into something dangerous. They formed up around the dusty horizon like a protective formation. And Danny opened a channel to all of them. "All right, everyone. Here is the situation. Our guest is Queen Valera of the Nocturi. The Korath have been hunting her people for centuries. They want to capture her and sell her blood. I told them no. Now they are sending a warship to kill us all. That is it?" Captain Crawford's voice came through. "Some alien jerk is picking on a scared lady. Yeah, we can handle that. What is the plan?" Pete Holloway asked. "We make them regret coming here," Danny said. "Standard formation. Use the asteroids for cover. Do not let them get a clean shot. And remember, Korath tactics are predictable. They rely on superior firepower and expect their enemies to run. They do not know how to handle people who fight back. When do they ever?" Nancy Kim laughed. A new signal appeared on the sensors, large and powerful. The Korath warship entering the sector with weapons already charged. Danny opened a final channel to the enemy ship. "Warlord Draxus," he said. "I am going to give you one chance to turn around and leave. The person you are hunting is under my protection, and she is not going anywhere with you." Draxus appeared on the screen. His reptilian face twisted with contempt. "You dare threaten me, human? I have a warship. You have garbage scows. This will not be a battle. It will be an execution." Danny smiled. And it was not a friendly smile. "Your funeral," he said, and cut the channel. The battle began with Chaos. Draxus opened fire immediately, expecting the small human vessels to scatter like prey. But they did not scatter. They moved together like a single organism, weaving between asteroids and using the debris field as cover in ways that the Korath tactical computers could not predict. Split and engage, Danny called out over the channel. Pattern Delta, make them chase us. The human ships broke formation and spiraled in different directions, each one becoming a separate target that the warship had to track. And the Korath weapons could not hit what they could not lock onto. Valera gripped the armrest of her seat as Danny threw the dusty horizon into a steep dive, narrowly avoiding a blast of green energy that would have torn the ship apart. "How are you doing this?" she gasped. "Human reflexes," Danny said with a wild grin. "We evolved running from predators. Our ancestors survived by making split-second decisions while being chased by things with very big teeth. It turns out that translates pretty well to space combat. The Korath warship was massive and powerful, but it was also slow, designed for overwhelming force rather than agility. And the human ships danced around it like flies around a giant, stinging and retreating before it could swat them. Iron horse to dusty horizon. I got a shot on their sensor array. Taking it, Pete Holloway's ship swooped in from an unexpected angle and fired a precise burst that knocked out a cluster of sensors on the warship's port side. Nice shot. Pete, Crawford, Kim hit them from the starboard while they are blind on the left. The Lucky Star and Midnight Runner moved in perfect coordination, hammering the warship's shields with sustained fire that forced the Korath to redirect power from weapons to defensive. Velo watched the battle unfold and felt something she had not felt in centuries. Hope. They're actually winning, she breathed. Not yet, Danny said. Draxus is not stupid. He is testing us, trying to figure out our tactics. We need to end this before he adapts. He turned to Valera with an intense look. You said your people can sense bioenergy. Right. Can you sense the crew aboard that ship? Can you tell me where they are concentrated? Valera understood immediately what he was asking, and she closed her eyes, reaching out with senses that she had suppressed for so long. The warship blazed in her perception like a dark fire, filled with hundreds of life forces, cold and cruel and hungry for violence. But she could feel patterns in the chaos, concentrations of energy where the crew gathered. The bridge is in the upper forward section, she said. And there is a large group near the center, probably the main crew quarters. And something near the back, something powerful. That must be the reactor. Danny relayed the information to the other ships. Everyone, target the sections I'm highlighting. We hit their bridge to blind them, then their reactor to cripple them. Coordinated strike on my mark. The human ships regrouped, and for a moment the Korath thought they were retreating. Draxus laughed over an open channel. Running away, humans. I expected more from the vaunted Deathworlders. 3, 2, 1 mark. All 8 human ships fired simultaneously. Not randomly, but at precise points that Valera had identified. And the warship shuddered under the assault alarms blared on the Korath vessel as systems failed. The bridge lost primary power. The shields flickered and dropped, and smoke began to pour from the reactor section. Draxus roared in fury. Impossible. This is impossible. You are cargo haulers. You are nothing. Danny opened a channel that broadcast not just to the warship, but to every vessel in the sector, every station, every relay that could receive a signal. My name is Danny Marsh, he said clearly. And I am a human. The woman you were hunting asked for help. She was scared and alone and running from someone who wanted to hurt her. That is all the reason I need to be here. That is all the reason any of us need. He paused, letting the words sink in. You asked why we are interfering in Dominion affairs. This is why, because someone needed help and we could give it. Because protecting the weak is not a transaction, it is a duty. Because we are human, and this is what we do. The message spread across the sector, picked up by ships and stations of a dozen different species. all of them watching the impossible sight of human cargo haulers facing down a Karth warship, the crippled vessel. Draxus made his final move. "If I cannot have the Nocturi," he snarled, "then no one will." Initiating self-destruct sequence. "We will all burn together." Valera felt the spike of energy from the reactor, the buildup of power that would vaporize everything within 100 kilometers. "He's going to blow up the ship," she screamed. Danny did not hesitate. Everyone pull back. "I am going in." "Danny, no." Crawford's voice came through. "You cannot board a ship that is about to explode. Watch me." The dusty horizon accelerated toward the warship, dodging debris and ignoring every warning light that flashed on the console. And Danny guided the ship to a docking port on the hull that was still accessible. "Stay here," he told Valera as he grabbed a weapon from a compartment and headed for the airlock. "I am coming with you." "No. You are not. You are the one he wants." "I am not giving him a chance to grab you at the last second." Valera grabbed his arm. "Then take this." She pressed her hand against his chest, and Danny felt a surge of energy flow into him. Strength and vitality that made him feel like he could run through walls. "My people can give as well as take," she said. "It will not last long, but it will help." Danny nodded once, then kissed her forehead in a gesture that surprised them both. "I will be right back." He ran. The interior of the Karth ship was smoke and emergency lighting and chaos. Crew members running in panic as the self-destruct countdown continued. But Danny pushed through all of it, following signs toward the bridge, using the borrowed Nocturi strength to move faster than any human should. He found Draxus on the bridge, standing over the self-destruct console with a mad grin on his reptilian face. 30 seconds, Draxus laughed. "You cannot stop it, human. We will die together." Danny raised his weapon. "I'm not here to stop the countdown. I am here to stop you." Draxus dodged with surprising speed for his size, and the two of them clashed in the middle of the bridge. The warlord's claws against Danny's enhanced fists, but Danny was faster, stronger, fueled by energy that Draxus had never encountered. And after a brutal exchange, he pinned the warlord to the ground. "Valera," Danny called into his communicator. "I need you now." She was already there, having followed despite his orders. And she looked down at Draxus with centuries of pain and rage in her glowing red eyes. "You killed my people," she whispered. "You murdered billions. And you called us monsters. Do it then." Draxus spat. "Drain me dry. Prove that you are the parasite everyone says you are." Valera knelt beside him, and she placed her hand on his chest, but she did not drain him dry. She took just enough to knock him unconscious, just enough to stop his heart for a moment before it restarted, leaving him alive but helpless. "I am not a monster," she said, "and I will not become one to defeat you." Danny grabbed the controls and aborted the self-destruct with 3 seconds remaining, cutting it a little close. Valera said weakly. Danny laughed, exhausted and relieved, and somehow still able to find humor in the moment. That is the human way. The aftermath of the battle spread across the galaxy like ripples in still water. Danny's broadcast had been heard by thousands, recorded and shared and debated in council chambers and taverns and ships across dozens of star systems. And the footage of 8 human cargo haulers defeating a Karth warship became the most watched event of the decade within days. The Galactic Council announced an investigation into the Karth Dominion's treatment of the Nocturi species. The first time anyone had officially questioned the narrative that had allowed genocide to continue for centuries within weeks. Other Nocturi survivors began to emerge from hiding, drawn by the news that someone had finally stood up for them, that humans, the feared Deathworlders from the toxic nightmare planet called Earth, had risked their lives to protect a string of Valera, watched all of this unfold from the dusty horizon, which had become a temporary headquarters for what Danny jokingly called the Resistance. Though really, it was just a lot of paperwork and communication with lawyers and journalists and politicians who suddenly wanted to be on the right side of history. I do not understand, she said one evening as she and Danny sat in the small kitchen area, sharing a meal that he had actually cooked properly for once. You could have become famous from this. Wealthy, powerful, everyone wants to give you things. And you keep saying no. Danny shrugged and poked at his food. I did not do it for fame or money. I did it because it was right. Taking rewards would make it feel like a transaction, and it was not a transaction. It was just doing what anyone should do. Not anyone would do this. I have lived for 300 years, and I have never seen anything like what you did. What all of you did. She gestured vaguely toward the viewport, where the other human ships were still gathered, their crews having become an unlikely family over the past weeks. Maybe that is the problem, Danny said thoughtfully. Maybe the galaxy has been doing things wrong for too long and forgot that there is another way. Humans are not special. We just grew up on a planet that tried to kill us constantly. And the only way we survived was by working together, by protecting each other, by deciding that some things are worth fighting for, even when the odds are bad. He looked at her with a soft smile. You would have done the same for us. I think if the situation was reversed, Valera considered this and realized that he was right. That she would have, that the capacity for selfless courage was not unique to humans. It just needed to be awakened. What happens now? She asked. Now you have choices, Danny said. The Council is setting up a sanctuary on one of the human colony worlds. A place where Nocturne survivors can gather and rebuild. You could go there. You could be queen again. Lead your people into a new era. Is that what you think I should do? I think you should do whatever makes you happy. For the first time in centuries, you have options. That is a gift. Do not waste it on what you think you should do. Choose what you want to do. Valera looked at him for a long moment. At this strange human who had changed everything, who had given her hope when she had none, who had fought a warlord and kissed her forehead and made terrible coffee and treated her like a person instead of a prize. I want to stay, she said quietly. Danny blinked. What? I want to stay here on this ship with you. I know that is selfish. I know my people need me. And I will go to them eventually. I will help them rebuild. But right now, I want to stay. Danny's face went through several expressions before settling on something that looked like barely contained joy. I mean, the guest cabin is really small, and the shower only works half the time. And I have a habit of singing in the morning that apparently offends the ears of every species in known space. I do not care. And I snore. Apparently, I snore really loudly. Lisa Crawford told me once that it sounds like an engine malfunction. Danny? Yes? Stop talking and say yes. He laughed, and it was a warm sound, full of genuine happiness. Yes, okay, yes. You can stay as long as you want. The weeks that followed were strange and wonderful. Vela learned how to be part of a crew, how to help with navigation and repairs, and the endless bureaucracy of being a cargo hauler. She learned human customs and humor and the strange rituals they called holidays. She met Danny's family through video calls and endured his mother's endless questions about whether he was eating properly and whether Valera was really a vampire queen. Because that sounded made up. She went to the sanctuary eventually. Spent months helping her people settle in and establish a new home, standing as a symbol of hope and survival. But she always came back to the dusty horizon. Always came back to Danny and the stars and the freedom she had never known before on the 1-year anniversary of the day she had woken up in his cargo bay. Danny found her standing at the viewport, watching a nebula paint the darkness with colors that had no names. You okay? He asked. I am thinking about how strange fate is, she said. If the smugglers had labeled my pod correctly, I would be dead now, or worse. Instead, their mistake sent me here, to you. And everything changed. That is life, I guess. Random and messy, and sometimes miraculously good. I never thanked you properly for everything you did. Danny stood beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. You do not need to thank me. I told you, it was just the right thing to do. But why? Of all the species in the galaxy, why are humans like this? Why do you care so much about strangers? Danny thought about the question, really thought about it. Before answering, I think it is because we know what it feels like to be alone. Earth was a hard place to survive, and our ancestors only made it because they helped each other. Because they decided that every person had value, that everyone deserved a chance. We carry that with us, I think. Encoded in our DNA or our culture or something. The knowledge that we are stronger together than apart. He turned to face her. You were not a stranger for long. Valera, you became family the moment you stepped onto this ship. And humans protect their family. Valera felt tears forming in her eyes. But for the first time in centuries, they were not tears of fear or grief. They were tears of joy. I have something for you, she said. A gift to mark this anniversary. She handed him a small cryopod. And Danny looked at it with suspicion. The last time someone gave me a cryopod, I got a terrified vampire queen. Just open it. He pressed the release, and the lid slid open to reveal a small creature, fluffy and white with tiny fangs and glowing red eyes. It looked up at Danny and made a sound that was somewhere between a purr and a chirp. This is a Nocth 3 companion animal, Valera explained. They are very loyal, slightly dramatic, and they will protect their owner with fierce devotion. I thought you might want one, since you never did get your pet. Danny picked up the creature, and it immediately curled against his chest and started purring. I am naming her Queenie, he said with a wide smile. Valera laughed, and it was a beautiful sound, free and light and full of life outside the viewport. The stars stretched on forever, and somewhere out there, species were telling stories about the humans who fought for a stranger, who faced a warlord and won, who proved that compassion was not weakness. The galaxy was changing, slowly but surely, learning a truth that humanity had always known, that the strongest force in the universe was not weapons or power or fear. It was love, and somewhere in the vastness of space, a cargo hauler called the Dusty Horizon drifted through the stars, carrying a human and a queen and a tiny dramatic pet, heading toward whatever adventure came next together.